Yes, the day has finally arrived. I'm going to show you how to punish the most popular move for white, the king's pawn to e4. This is probably what you'll face in the vast majority of your games, and I found a little recipe to beat it that I'll show you in this video, and quickly too, because it's not complicated. We'll start with the Sicilian defense. Don't worry, it's not complicated. Even if you know nothing about the Sicilian defense, don't worry, because there's nothing complicated about it. I'll explain what you should do. First, they'll follow up with knight to f3. They always follow with knight to f3. Whether we play the king's pawn or the Sicilian, knight to f3 is the most used move of all. And here, instead of making the most natural moves, do you know what we're going to do? Pay attention, okay? Because nobody expects it. A 6. Well, here, your opponent might think, why play a 6? A truly strange move, a pawn movement that gives us absolutely nothing. Well, here's the thing. They can continue in a completely normal way by playing d4, which is the most popular move of all. It would be a bit strange if they played this bishop here. If they have no idea about the Sicilian, they might play it, but we could simply keep advancing these pawns. They couldn't go back because we'd win the bishop. If they come this way, we could start putting on a lot of pressure. Therefore, the normal thing here is that instead of developing the bishop, right, what they'll do is play d4, which is the best move and the most logical one, and also the most used. Watch closely. We trade the pawn. In the Sicilian defense, the c pawn is always exchanged for the d pawn. That's what we always do, okay? Nothing new. If they capture with the queen, it's not a good move, because then developing the knight to c6 wins a tempo by attacking the queen. Therefore, they must capture with the knight. Notice that I'm explaining everything, move by move, the reasoning, so you understand it perfectly, and that way, no matter what your opponents do, you can now win the game. First important move, knight to f6. Here, they have two options, mess up completely or continue normally. If they mess up completely and advance the pawn, threatening this knight, watch out, you'll see this, because this knight is all alone here and can be easily attacked. Simply, queen to a5 checks the king, and also what it's doing is threatening this pawn. Therefore, they can't defend both things at once, and as a result, will win that pawn completely for free and have a very comfortable game with an extra pawn, and especially the most important pawn in the position. But the real trick comes when they keep playing normally and don't fall for this trap, but instead, when we threaten the pawn with knight to f6, they defend it with knight to c3. In other words, they play in a completely normal way. And this is exactly what we want, for them to play normally, because they're going to fall into our massive trap. By the way, if you want to know where I acquire all of this specialized knowledge and much more, it is actually because I'm training in our brand new Chess Masters Academy, where you'll find over 60 comprehensive opening courses, detailed middle game and end game exercises, and weekly video classes taught by highly experienced titled masters. It really is an impressive academy. I'll leave it for you down here in the description. I assure you that in there, you have everything you need to become the player you've always wanted to be. I'll see you inside. Let's continue. Perfect. How are we going to continue with this great opening, trap, call it what you want, with this very interesting move? F5. E5 poses a direct threat to this knight. And thanks to the fact that we've placed the pawn on a 6, now everything starts to make sense. They can't come here, which would bother us a lot, okay? This would bother us a lot. Therefore, since they can't jump, they must go back, for example, to b3, for example, to f3, or even if they want to f5. The engine recommends going to e2. What a strange move, right? This is what we like, for the engine to recommend strange moves, because we know our opponent won't make them. For example, the most common one, and the one I encounter most, is knight f3, attacking this pawn here. Are we going to defend it? No, we're going to continue with the next spectacular line. We're coming to pin the knight with our bishop on the b4 square. You're going to see how interesting this is. Without a doubt, it wouldn't be a good idea to capture this pawn. Do you know why? Because our threat is much better. We're threatening knight takes e4, putting too much pressure on this pin, and where we could also later play queen e7 to attack the knight. Well, it would be a disaster. What do they have to do? Defend this pawn, obviously. How can they do it? Well, you'll agree with me that the most logical thing is to play bishop d3 while defending this pawn, right? So this is where we'll play the brutal d5. And believe it or not, here we're practically already winning. They practically can't save themselves. Let's look at all the options. We're posing two threats at the same time. The first, to come here and threaten the pen knight and win a piece. And the second, to capture here, threatening both bishop and knight and win a piece. So they can't stop both threats. For example, what could they do? Well, it occurs to me they could play a 3 to kick out this bishop, but it wouldn't help them because queen a5 would follow. It couldn't be captured because the rook would fall. So here, whatever they do, we'd win a piece. For example, if they now cover this pen to avoid this, we'll simply capture here and win this piece here. For example, first eliminating the knight and then capturing here. However, a 3 isn't the most common move here. For example, what if they play bishop d2 immediately? We'd capture here and win a piece. Therefore, it seems the only way they save themselves is by eliminating our pawn, the truly problematic one that was threatening both to advance and to capture, right? So they take it, and now what? Do we take back? No, we simply push forward and create another fork. And here, many of you will tell me, look, chess teacher, this is all well and good. Now I'm threatening a bishop and a knight, but they just capture me right here. I can recapture, right? Because now the knight can't take back because it's pinned. But this is the most important part. They play queen e2, pinning this knight, so they'll just win it back. Well, no, don't worry, because they don't have time to win back this knight, because we'll do the next important thing. Bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, and now the key move is castling. And they no longer have time to recover this knight because they only have one chance to capture it now. Otherwise, we'll just pull it back and save it, leaving us with an extra piece. And if they take it, then simply rook e8, pinning the queen and the king, so we'd win the queen. Or they can put a piece in front of the queen and the rook. Therefore, we'd only win this piece, but it's very simple. We play f6, and this piece will be captured. It can't move away. For example, it could continue f4, pawn takes, pawn takes. We keep pressing with knight d7, they defend it. For example, knight of 6, a brutal move, threatening the queen, also threatening this pawn. And you can see that we have, logically, a full piece advantage, and the position is also very advantageous for us. We attack here, we attack here. Sure, chess teacher, I'll be very happy if this knight retreats to f3, but as you told me yourself, this knight can go to both b3 and f5 as well. How should I react? First, if they go to f5, you should know it's not a very good move. You can react immediately with this d5. Very good move. Why? Because now, first, they can't take you because they'd lose the knight, see? This pawn is very important and must be defended. However, they can also make the best move, right? The best move is this one. They're trying to annoy us here with this bishop pinning the knight. No need to worry. You can push this pawn attacking the knight once it jumps in. Then it seems like we're in trouble, but the thing is, they're going to lose material here. Why? Because the d4 pawn is an overloaded piece. You know what an overloaded piece means, right? A piece that defends two pieces at once. Therefore, we eliminate one while deflecting the pawn, and then the other knight is left completely hanging, and we have an extra piece again. And now, the most important part of the video. What happens if they play the best move for white? How should I react? Because imagine they don't fall for the little trap. Easy, I assure you. e4, c5, Sicilian defense. We play a 6, an important and key moment. We must play this a 6 no matter what, okay? How do we continue? Well, the most normal thing is that the center pawns are exchanged here, and now we'll play knight f6. So if they make the mistake of pushing, we have queen a5 winning the pawn. And if they play the correct knight c3, we're going to play e5. We've punished knight f3, we've punished knight f5, and now let's see how to play against the best move, knight b3. Very simple. What we should do is start with this pin right here. What are we threatening? We're threatening the following. Knight takes e4. Because now this knight isn't defending because it's pinned, so they have two options. Defend this pawn with f3 or with bishop d3. The best one is with the bishop. What happens if they defend with the pawn? Very simple. When they defend with the pawn, we break in the center, okay? So that now we're threatening to advance and win this point here again. You remember, right? So they must capture. And when they capture, we simply make these exchanges. They quickly realize we're threatening to capture here, so they must cover the pin, and I recommend making the exchanges, okay? And here, once you exchange everything, as you can see, you have a very, very favorable position. Why? Because here, the black pieces are the ones putting on the pressure. These pawns are completely weak. This castling's going to happen right away. This pawn is in a weird spot where this diagonal will always be open for the king. Therefore, this position is a bit strange for white and very easy to play for black. And what if they make the best move? That is, instead of defending with the pawn, they defend with the bishop. I'll go through it quickly. Don't be afraid to repeat, because that's what works best to make it stick in your head. E4, c5, knight f3, a6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, e5, knight b3. The good one. We'll continue with this bishop b4. Defending with the pawn was bad. The right way is to defend with the bishop. And if they defend with the bishop, chess teacher, they're doing everything perfectly. What should I do? Simple! You're going to do the following. Capture this knight so that you double the pawns. See how simple it is? This structure is technically losing for the white pieces. It's true, they haven't fallen for any tricks. However, we're in a much better position. We play d6, for example. They castle, we also castle. No matter how much they try to come here and do things they shouldn't, right? We can stop it very easily. For example, we kick out the bishop. Bishop e6, right? We come with knight d7. This is more for guidance, okay? They've done it perfectly. I'm showing you how to do it in case you have no idea. So that, now we're going to place the rook on c8 on the semi-open file, attacking these two pawns that are very weak and will end up falling because the only way to save them would be to advance them, and then the bishop and the rook would come and capture them, right? We can also play this b5, queen b6, queen c7. It's a tremendously correct position and better for black than for white. And that's if they haven't fallen into our trap. As you can see, this great trap and opening for the black pieces is fabulous. If you like these kinds of videos, leave me a big like, okay? Remember, you've got the new academy down in the description, which I honestly recommend 200% because it has so many things to study. You want to spend all day training, and we'll see each other tomorrow, as always, in the next video, friends. Bye!